One question I constantly get asked from CEOs, founders, and leaders that I work with is, how can I be more assertive? And I get it, right? All of you want results. You want your team to step up. You want to drive things forward, hit those massive goals, and maybe that vision that you have, that you are chasing, you see assertiveness as a tool to make it happen. And you feel like if you could just be more assertive, things would finally click. At the same time, you care about your people, right? You do not want to hurt them. You do not want to push them. You do not want to make their life difficult or get into a disagreement or conflict in the name of being assertive. And you want to keep your people happy. These are two sides of the same conundrum. And yet, you know, one way or other, this is stopping you from your leadership, right? If you can't be assertive, if you can't speak your mind, then the impact that is there for you to make is going to get impacted. But here is the truth. The distinction that most leadership advice misses is just being more assertive in the way that most people think, which is being louder, tougher, more demanding. That is what I call being assertive to your team. And it is rooted in control. It is rooted in giving direction. It is probably also rooted in fear. You don't want to fail, so you have to be assertive. Very frankly, this way of being assertive to somebody or something actually creates more problems than it solves. You get compliance, maybe, but certainly you kill commitment, you kill innovation, you kill team spirit, and you become the bottleneck. You burn yourself out and also other people in your team if you continue to be assertive and keep on pushing people. If you want to scale your company to your biggest dreams and beyond that, if you want to build a team which is a powerhouse of leaders who can run with you but also without you, if you want your work to touch millions of lives, if you want your impact to spread through the entire world like a ripple effect, then the assertiveness that you need is not just more assertive, it's actually a different kind of assertiveness. And you need to understand the crucial difference between being assertive to your team versus being assertive for your team. Now let me explain, what does it mean to be assertive for your team? That is the kind of assertiveness that unlocks potential, both your teams and yours as well. That is the kind of assertiveness that builds teams, that builds empires, legacies, and workplaces that actually nourish people, where people want to come to work, where people want to talk to you. And it is about demanding clarity, it is about challenging growth and holding a space for their leadership to emerge. You're not being assertive to somebody, you're being assertive for their growth, for their benefit. When you are coming from an assertive state of being, assertiveness is a gift. It is not something you do to somebody else, it is a gift that you give to other people. I am Sumit, the founder of the Deploy Yourself School of Leadership. What we do is build teams that crush goals, not because they are better teams, but because they are more empowered. I work with the best of the best who get that true leadership is not about power. In fact, it is about unleashing power in other people. And this distinction, assertive to versus assertive for, is at the absolute core of making that leap. It is the difference between staying stuck and achieving something which is very meaningful in impact and often in complexity and size. So let's break down what these really mean and how mastering assertive for is the key to unlocking everything that you want. Now, here is the thing that most leadership experts get wrong. The problem isn't about being too assertive or not assertive enough. It is about the direction of your assertiveness. Most struggling leaders are assertive to their teams when they should be assertive for their teams. Let me explain what I mean, because this distinction might be subtle, but it changes everything. Being assertive to your team looks like, I need this done by Friday. That approach doesn't work. We need to hit those numbers. That is what it looks like to be assertive to your team. Now, being assertive for your team looks like, what is stopping you from making this decision right now? You might say, I notice we have had these same conversations 3 times. Now, what is really going on here? You're inviting them. You're being assertive, but you're inviting them to participate rather than a one-way assertiveness flowing from me to you. Another way being assertive for somebody might show up is, you mentioned you need another month for analysis. Now, what specific information that you think that additional month will provide? You told me this will take another 7 days. What do you think will change in the next 7 days that you will be able to help me out with a deadline or whatever? Do you see the difference? Do you feel the difference? When you are being assertive to your team, you're pushing your agenda, your timeline, and your solution. It is something that you do to others. You are taking from them. Now, when you're being assertive for your team, you're challenging them to step up as leaders. You're challenging them to break through their own patterns. You're challenging them to make clear decisions, and you're doing this for them, for their future, for their growth, for their dreams. And it is a gift you give them. One creates compliance. The other creates commitment and growth. One takes, the other gives. Now let me show you how this played out with my client Mark. Mark is the CEO of a software company and he has around 120 employees. Now his team meetings were a nightmare. Everybody would sit around the table agreeing with whatever Mark was suggesting, and if he asked for input, the only thing he would get is vague responses. In that meeting, everybody knew something is missing, but nobody is brave enough to talk about it. That was the kind of environment he was perpetuating. Decisions would seemingly get made, but weeks later nothing would change and it would be back in the same pattern. Does that sound familiar to you? And now in our first coaching conversation, I watched Mark run a meeting. I sat in one of his meetings and I observed him. He was frustrated with his CMO because the product launch was behind schedule. Now what I heard him say was like, we need to launch this by the end of the month. And he also mentioned, I want daily updates on progress. And this delay is unacceptable. That's how Mark was being assertive to his CMO. Then I watched the CMO go silent and retreat. And the meeting ended with whatever, or let's see next week, let's see what happens, which for me is simply pushing the can down the road, but not actually solving for anything. Now, this is classic assertive to leadership. And guess what this CMO did? The CMO nodded, the CMO apologized, the CMO promised to look into it, the CMO promised to try harder. And after the meeting, when Mark came to another coaching session, I simply asked him one question. Now, do you think that actually anything changed after that conversation? And he mentioned simply, like, I know nothing changes. This has been going on already for the last 2 months. So he knows like, most likely nothing will change. So in the next meeting with the CMO and his team, we tried a different approach. Instead of telling his CMO what to do, Mark tried being assertive for the CMO's growth as a person. He asked, what is specifically causing the delays? He asked, what decision are you struggling to make that I could help with? He asked that if I could solve any one problem to get this back on track, what would that be? How can I help? He asked, what is stopping you from committing to a firm date rather than giving vague responses? What is stopping you, or what would you need to commit to a clear, very clear date that I can count upon? Instead of being assertive to his CMO, he was still being assertive, but he was asking, how can we work together? The difference was immediate and in fact shocking to Mark. His CMO actually started talking about the real issues, and he realized the CMO was waiting for some data and afraid of making the wrong call on pricing. Mark was being assertive for the CMO. The conflict came out in the open and they agreed on something. By the end of that meeting, the CMO had made clear commitments with specific dates. The CMO actually set a more aggressive timeline than Mark would have asked for. Now again, I know some of you might be thinking that I can't be this direct. I can't say that we won't drop our standards. I can't say that this is unacceptable. I can't challenge everybody on their face because this will hurt people. This might destroy relationships. And you might think that you are a nice person. I know you might be thinking, because many of my clients come up with this objection as well. But let me share the truth, which most leadership books or experts or gurus won't tell you. Empathy without authenticity is just plain weakness. Empathy without authenticity is not being real. It's actually mediocrity. Now, being assertive for your team isn't about being nice or not. Sometimes it is actually harder and more uncomfortable because you are forcing people to confront their own patterns of avoidance and indecision. And it is not something you do to them. Once again, it is not something you do to them. It is something you do for them. Now, being assertive can actually be more demanding because you are asking people to come up with answers on their own regard, on their own will. But it demands growth. It does not demand compliance. It does not demand obedience. It demands growth. It demands participation. It demands open conversation. It demands courage. I will share a very simple example. One of my clients had to let somebody go. And this was a very difficult decision because they were not fitting in. For a long time, they were avoiding the conversation because they did not want it to destroy a relationship or not be not nice. But in the end, this person was assertive for their team member. They let that person go, and at the same time, they also supported the person in whichever way while they were making the exit from the company. This is an old client. So 12 months later, he heard back from the person he had to let go of. And this person actually thanked him for the feedback and for firing them and said that basically that turned his life around. He got the real message. He learned to take responsibility because somebody was brave enough to give him feedback and actually fire him for a role that he was clearly unfit for. So let me ask you this, right? What if instead of avoiding the direct conversation, being assertive for your team is the biggest gift that you can give? Instead of being nice, what if being assertive for your team is the biggest gift as a leader? To honor their truth first, but then also to lead from your truth to serve people rather than to avoid somebody not liking you or to avoid a difficult or a conflict like conversation. How do you actually put it into practice? Now, here are 5 ways to shift to assertive communication. First of all, ask questions about implementation instead of making accusation, instead of making judgments. Ask questions. Instead of saying this plan is not detailed enough, ask what is it specifically that you will be doing between now and our next meeting. Second, challenge unnecessary delays with curiosity instead of blame. So instead of saying we can't wait that long, start asking that what specific information will that additional time period provide. Third, acknowledge these patterns directly. Don't brush the elephant in the room under the carpet. So you can say something like, I notice we have the same conversation for the last 3 meetings. What is really going on? What is really preventing us from moving forward? Right? And you can force explicit choices from people to help others grow as leaders. You can say we have 2 options. Either we commit fully to this strategy with all of its risks, or we explicitly decide to focus somewhere else. But we cannot stay in 2 lands, and we cannot stay like half-hearted to either this or either this. So which are we choosing today? You can force people to make a decision today and let that decision be there. You can be assertive for them without making the choice for them. You can say, which decision are we choosing today? We are not walking outside of this meeting today without making a call, but you make a call and you own that call after that. That's being assertive for your team, for their growth. And clearly distinguish between discussion and a decision, right? You can say something like, we have been discussing this for the last 30 days, or we have been discussing this for the last 40 minutes. And all of these ideas, all of these points of views are welcome. But today we are going to make a decision. Today we are going to make a call, and we are going to leave with a clear choice. That's being assertive for your team. Now let me share what happened with another client of mine. She ran a marketing agency and was constantly frustrated that the team would not take initiative. Her team would wait for her approval or everything, and she basically ended up becoming the bottleneck for the team. In one meeting, rather than telling her team exactly what to do on a particular client proposal, she showed what it means to be assertive for the team. She said, I'm noticing a pattern where every decision comes back to me. Today, I want you to make this call without my input. What approach do you think is best? What do you think is stopping you from deciding that on your own? At first, there was uncomfortable silence, right? Because the team was used to her making all the calls and were not used to making decisions independently. But then something amazing happened. Within a few days, within a few weeks, they actually started talking to each other instead of just talking to the CEO. They debated different approaches among themselves without always looking to the CEO to break a tie, to give their input, or to give the final resolution. They started challenging each other's thinking, and the team meetings basically became conversations with the team rather than just the team speaking to the CEO and waiting for her input for every important point. They ultimately came up with a solution, a plan for a particular client, which was better than what my client originally had in her mind. One team member actually admitted afterward that I was always waiting for her intervention. I was waiting for her approval because I was afraid that if I made a mistake, how would that reflect on me? Just by shifting how she was being assertive for their team's growth rather than to get obedience or compliance, she broke a pattern that had been holding everybody back for multiple years at this point of time. So here is what you can do right now. You can answer and reflect on a list of 20 questions. And if you want the list in writing, drop me a message. I will send you the list. You can use these in your very next leadership meeting to start shifting from assertive to assertive for your team. Do not just listen to these questions and then don't do anything. Make it count. The value of this video is not in the voice, in the words that you hear. It's not in the sound bites. It's actually in the implementation of what I'm talking about in your next meeting. If you watch this video and then do the same in your next meeting, turn this video off right now. I'm here to shift your life. I'm not here to sound good, perfect or polished and deliver a viral or perfect video. I am here so that you change something in your life, create a difference and an impact which creates something better for you, your team, and everybody else involved. So as I share these questions, act on these questions now, today, this week, not tomorrow. Here are the list of 20 assertive questions. Question number 1, what is preventing us from making this decision today? Question number 2, if you had to make this call right now with no more information, what would your decision be? Number 3, what specific information are you waiting for before deciding, and how will that change your decision? The next question, I notice we have had this conversation multiple times now. What is really going on here? Next question, who needs to be in agreement before you feel comfortable moving forward? Next question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in this approach? What would make it a 10? What is the conversation that we are all avoiding right now? What is the bigger risk, making the wrong decision or making no decision at all? What would you do if you weren't afraid of how others might react? What specifically will you have accomplished by this time next week? What obstacles do you anticipate and how will you address them if they arise? How will we know if this approach is working? What are the metrics that we can track? And when will we evaluate it? When are we meeting next? If I were unavailable for a month, how would you handle this on your own? What is the hardest conversation you need to have with your team about this and when will you have it? What question should I be asking that I haven't even asked yet? What organizational habits, beliefs, processes are actually getting in our own way? If we were a brand new company today without any history, what would we do in this situation? If we can accomplish only one major objective this quarter, is this it? If not, then what is that? We have two clear options, X or Y. There's no middle ground and we have to choose one today. So which path do you want to choose? Each of these questions is designed not to tell your team what to do, but to help them break through their own barriers to decisive leadership. These questions force clarity, commitment, and growth while respecting their intelligence. These allow you to be assertive without pushing people. These questions work because they shift you from pushing solutions or ideas to your team to being assertive for their development as leaders. When you start being assertive for your team, it might not be comfortable to you, it might not be comfortable for your team, they might not like you, but in the long run, both you and other people will respect you and thank you for being assertive for your team. You will see what happens, like even when you fire somebody, it is not something that you do to them, it is something that you're doing for them, for their growth. If you want to go deeper on any of this, I run an immediate momentum challenge once a quarter where we will work through these real scenarios from your organization and rebuild your leadership approach from the ground up. If you found this helpful, the best way to do your bit is to hit subscribe and share this video with another leader who is struggling with their team and who would benefit from being assertive for them. When you become assertive for your team, you will stop solving problems that belong to other people or that belong to your team. You will stop answering questions immediately instead of pausing and asking a question, allowing your team to answer. You will stop speaking first in meetings. You will stop accepting vague commitments. You will stop accepting words like we will try, we will look into this, let's give our best, and in fact ask people for real accountability. You will stop rushing in to fill uncomfortable silences. There is nothing wrong with silence. You will stop focusing on mistakes and instead focus on patterns, then bring them up in a conversation. You will stop approving half-baked plans. You will stop approving something which is done mediocre, and you will start upholding a higher level of standard. You will stop assuming that your team can't handle these challenges without you. You will give them responsibility, but you will start by believing that yes, they can do it on their own. You will stop confusing empathy with lowered standards, right? It's not empathy if you are lowering your standard everywhere. That's just mediocrity. And you will also stop believing that you are responsible for somebody else's happiness. Your job as a leader is not to make everybody comfortable. It is to create conditions for growth and results for yourself as well as for other people. And many times discomfort is often necessary for growth, for development, for learning. When you're being assertive for your team, you will also stop measuring your leadership, your growth by how much needed you are. If your people don't reach out to you, if they don't ask you a question, if they don't bring you in, that doesn't mean you're not doing well as a leader. If you feel the temptation to jump in because that makes you feel important, then catch that. Because the more independent you can be, in fact, that's a sign that the more powerful leader you are becoming. Stop believing that telling somebody is faster than asking somebody. While telling might sound faster in the short term, it costs a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy in the long run. When CEOs, when leaders master the art of being assertive for their teams rather than to them, several transformational organizational shifts occur. First, decision quality increases. The speed of decision increases. Issues that previously would linger for a long time get resolved in a single meeting because now everybody is just talking to each other's faces. Implementation improves. When you make clear and specific commitments, follow through improves. You don't have to follow up as much. Clarity creates because you don't accept vague commitments. You don't accept try and maybe. Everybody is very clear. And you are forcing explicit choices many times between competing priorities. The organization creates a sharper focus as a result. And not just your leadership capacity, but also your team's leadership capacity expands. They become more confident. They start to make better decisions on their own. To wrap this up, the distinction between being assertive to versus being assertive for your team may appear subtle, but its organizational impact, the impact on results is profound. By shifting from a posture of directing outcomes to one of demanding clarity and commitment, CEOs and leaders, you can transform from being a taskmaster to being a catalyst for growth. You can help your team break through their own avoidance patterns while establishing the conditions for truly distributed leadership. In this era, right, that we live in, of tremendous complexity, change happening almost at a speed that we have never seen before, this approach, being assertive for your team, not to them, but for them, cuts through a lot of noise, cuts through a lot of politics. It respects others' agency while still refusing to accept mediocrity, while still refusing to enable indecision that keeps organizations stuck where they are. And it creates the foundation of authentic team building, strong team which works together, which supports each other based on truth telling. Rather than talking about what is comfortable, people share truth with each other. So that is it for today. Remember, be assertive for your team, not assertive to them. That makes all the difference. They will thank you for that. Thank you.